What do you have to say to the trans students on this campus who feel actively victimized by your presence here?
That I campaigned against him. That is not true.
It's illegitimate president.
I turned mine off. Alarmgate. Is it a thing? Candace Owens gets heckled and responds hilariously in New York a couple nights ago. The Donald Trump case in the state of New York is getting weirder. We got some details for you. And because we haven't been on the air the last 2 days, you got to talk about the Republican kerfluffle that happened in the House of Representatives. All of that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
Here we go.
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker that is completely and utterly and totally cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is Thursday, October 5th, the year of our Lord 2023. Been gone the last couple days. Tried to get up yesterday, but just didn't happen. Logistics are tough. But was on the road with Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens. And from the event on Tuesday night in Albany, New York, we have a hilarious clip that I'll play for you later on. Think of that as the dessert for the talking. Want to get to this Trump stuff in New York, because I feel like that's a bigger thing than I think a lot of people are making it. But first, you got to talk about this. I know you probably been beaten to death with this yesterday, and I feel like a lot of people have different ideas of how this is working. I don't know that I've heard what I think anywhere else. And that's not like a me thing. That's like the conclusion that I came to with this is I haven't heard it represented anywhere. So I feel like I got to talk about it just for at least a little bit, and would love to hear some comments on what you all think about the ousting of Kevin McCarthy as the Speaker of the House. Blatantly, plain and simple, I'll say this. I did not disagree with any of the reasoning or anything Matt Gaetz said. I'll say that again. Everything that Matt Gaetz said, I did not disagree with. In other words, I agreed with all of it. In case we're using double negatives here. Okay, that's case number one. Point number two, I don't know why we needed to do what he did. It's right. I know that's a weird kind of conundrum to try and balance in your head, and I haven't really heard anybody else say that. But I think he was absolutely right about everything he said, and also didn't need to do it. So, from an ideological perspective, if we were just to get into this briefly, yes, the country is $30-some trillion in debt. Everybody is spending recklessly. There are things going on in the federal government, at the federal government level, that are untenable and unsustainable. Matt Gaetz was 100% right. And also, how did this help? I don't know. I haven't heard anybody have that kind of a thought yet. I don't know. Maybe they have. But the whole idea of Ben Shapiro called it the circular firing squad of the Republicans in the House of Representatives, to me, seemed like good principle that didn't benefit anybody. When Matt Gaetz is saying we are ruining ourselves from a federal government institutional level on the border, on the debt crisis, on spending limits, on money to Ukraine, on this and on all of the things, he is absolutely right. And Republicans shot themselves in the foot by making themselves look dumb. And I feel like there's a big piece of irony that is missing here. So the 8 Republicans that voted to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House were all upset, up in arms, because Kevin went along with Democrats in a prolonging of the government running before it shut down. So over the weekend, there was a short bill passed. We talked about it Monday. To fund the government for an extra couple days so that they can negotiate and figure some things out. I personally don't care about a government shutdown, but that's besides the point at this point in time. There was a bill passed that some Democrats agreed to, so they're like, okay, fine. We at least have a negotiation stopgap so that we can figure this out in the more long term. Matt Gaetz and his friends did not like that, and therefore then said, well, we are going to call to remove Kevin as the Speaker of the House. The irony is that Matt and those 8 Republicans wanted to remove Kevin from the speakership for siding with Democrats, and in order to do so, sided with Democrats to remove him from the speakership. Again, think what you want. I've already made that abundantly clear. I don't think Matt Gaetz is wrong about any of the policy issues he was standing on, the policy principles he was standing on. At the same time, I don't know how this helped. If someone can explain how this is going to help, I would love to hear it. Now, on average, in the last 100 years, this is a fun statistic, the majority in the House of Representatives, and I believe they're including the Senate in here too, I think it's just the House, is 80 seats. 435 members of the House of Representatives in Congress. The majority is usually the majority by an average over the last 100 years of 80 seats. Now Republicans have a majority of 5 or 7? I don't know who dies or resigns or is not in Congress is always in flux, so I don't know. Whatever the number is, it's a super, super narrow and slim margin between the majority and the minority in the House. All of that is to say that this sort of thing couldn't have happened in the past because of how big the majorities are. And even people that are on quote unquote the fringes, if that's the terminology you want to use, trying to pull something like this wouldn't have worked because they wouldn't have had the numbers. But because the margin is so close, they're able to do stuff like this, which again, I don't know how that helps. In the grand scheme of things, in a system that exists with 2 parties, the best way to get the things that you want done, if your goal is to pass legislation that is the most conservative legislation, and that is your goal as a Republican, doing so probably should not include getting rid of Republicans in leadership. Now, again, I understand. Again, I don't disagree with anything Matt Gaetz was saying, but considering that the margin was so close, unfortunately, you have to negotiate. It's not a problem. That's the way the country was designed, but that is what Congress is. You have to negotiate. I would say to Matt and a bunch of the other people that I agree with policy-wise, if you want to get stuff through that you're talking about, you have to win elections. You have to go around, and Matt's very good at raising money. He's a fantastic fundraiser. And so is Kevin McCarthy. And a lot of other congressional Republicans are good at raising money. But if you want the stuff getting passed that is more conservative than the negotiating table will allow, you have to go win elections. And so when it all comes down to winning elections to provide a bigger majority for your side of the aisle to have bigger and better negotiating power, is making Republicans look dumb and unorganized going to help that cause? In other words, the media and Democrats, and rightly so, are saying Republicans look like they're punching themselves in the face over this Kevin McCarthy, Matt Gaetz ouster situation. And they are in a lot of ways. Is that going to help Republicans win elections? And if it's not, guess what? The more conservative legislation isn't going to get passed because you have to negotiate, and the terms that you're negotiating on are not with a substantial majority in the House. So I understand that this is a bigger, complex thing. I think the internet has gone wild with, I stand with Matt Gaetz, or I stand with Kevin McCarthy. I just ultimately think at the end of the day, it's a waste of time and makes people look stupid. Again, I have not heard anybody, in terms of taking sides, I haven't really heard anybody say that I agree with Matt Gaetz' policy principles and it was also idiotic to do. But that's how I feel. I don't know. It's just, I agree with all of the money, with the budget, with all of the spending that we're doing. Matt Gaetz is 100% right. But considering how narrow the margin is, what other choice did Republicans have to compromise in negotiations? And if you don't want to compromise, like I'd rather have things my way. If you don't want to compromise, you have to win elections. And in order to win elections, you can't look stupid on the national stage, which is exactly what all of this did. So it's a whole big circle type thing. And I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen? Yesterday, Jim Jordan officially threw his hat in the ring to run for the speakership. But also, remember, Jim Jordan, people like Thomas Massie, Chip Roy, big-time conservatives were also backing McCarthy. So really, I think the only thing that this did was made Republicans look stupid on the national stage, despite agreeing with the reasoning. The actual act itself of removing McCarthy was dumb and idiotic, and I don't think serves the greater purpose of helping Republicans win elections. Because I'll tell you what, if you have a 100-seat majority in the House of Representatives, you're going to get a lot of stuff through that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten through. And you also have to win the Senate, and you also have to win the presidency. But at the end of the day, as Shapiro called it, the circular firing squad of Republicans seemed to damage the ability to have stronger negotiating standpoints by winning more elections. So there's that. I will stop belaboring on that because I feel like it got talked to death yesterday. But I don't know. I'd be curious. I'll probably read through some of these comments in a little bit. But that's that. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, I'm hoping Jim Jordan wants that job. Actually wants that job because that's a sucky job. Charlie Kirk was talking on his show yesterday about what the speakership entails and the amount of time, effort, energy, resources that has to go into fundraising in all whatever 300 districts that Republicans are looking to win. It is a grueling job that nobody wants. And so the fact that Kevin McCarthy was willing to do it, again, this is not a defense of Kevin McCarthy, but it's more of a what good did that do? Anyways, I'll stop. Because I got to get to this. I feel like this is a bigger thing in the media and just in general that I feel like should be talked about substantially more. Are you following Trump's civil trial in New York? You want to talk about the federal government bringing charges against Donald Trump or the Fulton County District Attorney or the Manhattan DA. All of that stuff, I guess, is been seen, not I guess, it has been seen, and rightly so, has been seen as a political prosecution. But in terms of criminal prosecution versus civil prosecution, I think this civil case is so much more on the nose of this is a political prosecution. We hate this guy. Therefore, we're going to try and strip him of his ability to do business. Without getting into the trial specifically, because we talked about that, last week when it was getting underway. The whole idea that Donald Trump exaggerated the worth and the value of his properties, which is something that literally everyone does. And then the banks coming out and saying the financiers who were lending him money said, yeah, we don't believe people when they say that. We go do our own due diligence, do our own research, get our own appraisals, and that's how we do it. And nobody involved in any part of those transactions felt that they were being slighted in the least. Everybody made money, including the banks, Trump, the appraisers, everybody. And yet, it's being tried in New York State by a person who is claiming that there's no political bias whatsoever. Letitia James, who is the New York Attorney General. I want you to watch this clip of her. It's a montage, actually, of her on a talk show saying that this is not political in any way, shape, or form. And then a probably longer clip than we needed, but screw it, we're going to do it all, of her doing the exact opposite of what she's claiming on this particular news channel. Watch this.
The President of the United States has complained that I'm engaging in some sort of political witch hunt, that I've got some personal vendetta against him, that I campaigned against him. That is not true.
This illegitimate president who sits in the White House.
That president, because he's not my president, he's an illegitimate president. His days are numbered. His days are numbered.
We've got to get ready to mobilize, and we've got to get ready to agitate and irritate until victory is won, but more importantly, until Trump is defeated. We will all rise up and resist this man,
And ultimately, we'll bring him down.
this illegitimate president. I'm going to give you the same level of respect that you gave to President Obama, and that is absolutely no respect at all.
Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. And the days of Donald Trump are numbered. Lock him up. Lock him up. What? Lock him up. What? Lock him up. What? Lock him up.
So, yeah, I think nail on the head here. Ryan says, doesn't sound like she's biased at all. She sounds like a totally unbiased arbitrator of the truth. Yeah. But such a weird situation to be in. And this is kind of, in the broader scope, this whole idea of post-truth. She knows that we know that she's biased. We know that she knows that we know that she's biased. And yet she goes on a TV show saying, I'm not biased at all. This has nothing to do with politics or personal vendettas or anything. I did not run on the fact that I was going to get Donald Trump. I did no such thing. We know that you know that we know that we already know that that's not true. That's such a weird time to be living in. And also, this was pointed out, and I thought it was a good point. The first clip there, I don't know if you remember that, after her TV appearance saying, I am not at all. I never campaigned against Donald Trump. The first clip of her campaigning against Donald Trump, she said she's going to fight with everything she has against this illegitimate president. In other words, sounds like she's an election denier. Right? Isn't that what you call somebody who doesn't believe the president of the United States is legitimate, an election denier? And isn't that a bad thing? And isn't it only conservatives / Republicans that are election deniers? Huh. How interesting. Now, during the whole court proceedings, there's been video clips of Trump sitting in the court and she's sitting behind him glaring. It is such a dumb... You want to take the Alvin Bragg stuff in Manhattan, the Jack Smith stuff out of D.C., the Mar-a-Lago stuff, the Atlanta or the Fulton County stuff. I get it. I understand how people are... Not I understand. I agree that it's... If it's not a political prosecution, it sure as heck looks like one. But of all of those, this civil case in New York is so much more on its face blatantly motivated by political hatred, which makes us as a country and as a population look worse than any of those other indictments for the criminal side. Now, there's a lot been made about the judge too. The judge in this particular case has come out and said some interesting things. And hold on, there was a couple comments in here that I thought were kind of interesting. Somebody said Trump's deserved what he gets. No more blinders. I don't know if this is necessarily blind. Like, if he was guilty of something that was apparent and obvious and wasn't something that literally everyone, including myself, does, which is exaggerate the value of your property, and then also understand that the banks and the financial institutions are up to them to do their own due diligence. Like, I don't know. And then somebody said, stop defending a dictator. Ronnie says that. I don't even know if what I'm doing is defending Donald Trump. I've made no secret about it on this show. I wish he would stop putting his foot in his mouth, and I wish the Trump PR machine wasn't so good at making people dislike him. I've said that multiple times. But is this a defense of the president? I don't actually know. Is it a defense of the president, or is it calling out of a dumb system that is actively going after somebody who happens to be the former president? Am I defending him, or am I attacking what clearly looks like a corrupt system? But anyway, the main thing I wanted to get there was the dictator part. Now, I want you to listen to the judge in this case, and then let me know who you think the dictator is. Watch this.
Now, I'm going to say something controversial, even though I'm being taped. Juries get it wrong a lot. That's my own opinion. I do only civil trials, personal injury cases, contract disputes. But I've had situations where, like, oh my heaven's sake, how could they have thought that? Well, I have a tool that I can deal with that. It's called jury notwithstanding the verdict, judgment notwithstanding the verdict. I can say there is no possible way that a reasonable jury would have reached that conclusion. And all right, am I following the law or am I making law? Okay, I'm following law. I'm an impartial referee, but it's hard to factor out my own emotions. And I have tools. Somebody can say, well, Your Honor, you have to throw out this case because it's just like another case. Well, is it just like another case? What if the defendant was wearing a red sweater instead of a blue sweater? Oh.
All right, that's enough of that. There's quite a bit more of that, but basically, this is the judge in the civil case in New York saying, you know, I know there's a jury, but sometimes the juries are just wrong. Sometimes those 12 dumb idiots, is what he's saying, are so wrong that I, the arbiter of truth, who by his own admission says sometimes it's difficult to pull my emotions out of it, which emotionally, I wonder what his feelings toward the president are. If these dumb idiots who sit on this jury can be so wrong that I have the ability to make the law and just decide arbitrarily based on the emotional standing and how I feel about the political climate and person. Yeah. Look, again, all of those 4 other indictments are they look pretty bad from this looks like a political prosecution. I think this civil case in New York makes those look just. The New York civil case is bananas. Especially because nobody was harmed. Literally nobody was harmed. This is a, hey, I think you did a bad thing. And the people that supposedly were frauded are like, no, it's fine. And the person, no, he did a bad thing and we need to punish that. Everybody involved is like, there's no bad thing here. What are you talking about? We did our own thing. He did his own thing. Everybody made money. We're all good. No. He did the bad thing. And the judge says, well, the jury might not think that he did a bad thing, so I think he did a bad thing, but so I can overrule those dumb idiot jury members. What a bad way. This is interesting. Phillips says, they didn't hire you as a lawyer. He committed fraud. Lyriad. I would imagine he meant to say period, but I will not judge a man on his typos while typing into a live stream. Correct, I'm not a lawyer, but at the same time, what is fraud? is fraud defrauding an institution that didn't also willingly participate and do their own due diligence? Is it then fraud when literally every single person in America who owns property tries to tell the county, no, my property is not worth this amount of money. It's worth 20% less than what you think, considering that their taxes are based on the valuation of their home? Is that okay? Fine. If doing what every single person who owns property does, or at least tries to do, is fraud, okay. Good luck with running a society that way. If claiming something that you want to be true is just blatant fraud, and the banking institutions are just like, oh, we're just going to believe you blindly. We're not going to investigate at all. We're not going to do any of our own due diligence. We're not going to do an appraisal. We're just going to give you that money based on your word. If that is the biggest issue, or if that's something that you take that much of an issue with, we've got a bigger problem in this country, and the problem seems to be idiocy instead of actual fraud. But I think definitions here are sometimes difficult for some. Jeez. God, I was going to do stuff on the alarm. I wanted to talk about Eric Adams going to South America to say, don't come to New York. But I guess we won't get to that. But that's basically that story. It's Eric Adams, mayor of New York City, going to South America saying, don't come to New York City, the sanctuary city that we welcome everybody. But speaking of New York, I just wanted to play this clip because part of the reason why I wasn't on the stream the last 2 days is, what was it? Monday night I was in San Jose, California with Charlie Kirk, and then Tuesday night was here with Candace Owens in the sanctuary state of New York, which is now no longer a sanctuary state because that policy and idea and that campaign slogan was dumb. But yeah, I was with Candace Owens on Tuesday at an event in New York, and this particular clip from that event is making the rounds, and I just thought it was too funny to not play. And it was one of those you're sitting in the room and you're listening, and you hear what happens and you go, oh, that's going to be a viral clip. That is going to be a huge clip. And it was. I think there's about 5 million views on this clip in a day. So watch this, enjoy it with me, and that'll do it. Watch this.
Trans students on this campus who actively feel victimized by your presence here today. Additionally, you just pointed out that this man detransitioned, but earlier in your speech...
Guys, I want to hear her. Go ahead. What do I have to say? Just the question, please. No speech. What is the question?
What do you have to say to the trans students on this campus who feel actively victimized by your presence here?
Life's tough. Get a helmet, man. I'm too pregnant for this. Next question.
I love that. What do you have to say to the transgenders who are victimized? What do you have to say to the people who feel victimized by you just being here? Sorry. Life's tough. Get a helmet. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, that was one of those where you're in the room and you're just like, that's going to go nuts. And lo and behold, it went nuts in terms of video virality. But yeah. Anyways, let's see. Interesting. Love that you go, Candace. Yeah, no, I'm with Candace next week too. If you haven't already, check out the Turning Point USA tour. It's actually very fun. I'm in UCF Orlando with Charlie Kirk on Tuesday of next week, with Candace on Thursday in Atlanta, and the rest of the dates are escaping my head because there's a lot going on right now in the tour world. Mary says Candace rocks. Oh, and this is a good point. Mike says t-shirt stuff right there. Yeah, that they should put that on a t-shirt. Life's tough. Get a helmet. Candace Owens. That's a great idea. If they're not already doing that, that should happen. Maybe I'll suggest that. That's a great idea. Let's see. But that'll do it for us today. Appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. Maybe we'll talk about Alarmgate tomorrow, but probably not. It really wasn't that significant. let's see. We're not going to be here tomorrow either. I know did 2 shows. This week was a travel bonanza, and also next week will be a travel bonanza. The travel is getting wild. October is tour month, both for my comedy tour and the Turning Point USA tour. So yeah, Monday, Tuesday, we're at Turning Point tour events. Tomorrow and Saturday, I'm doing comedy shows in Van Buren, Arkansas on Friday, and then Tulsa, Oklahoma on Saturday. If you live in any of those areas, come on out. It'd be a great time. Super fun to get to kind of hang out with y'all and talk about the news of the day. So, but yeah, I'll be flying tomorrow, so we won't be here yet again. We'll see you Monday, same time, same place. God bless America.